Well, hi there. This is a bamboo rat snake, and it has got to be one of the most beautiful of all snakes. I mean, look at that color. I would argue that some subspecies are even more beautiful than this one. These little beauties come from Southeast Asia. They come in different patterns depending on the locality, but pretty much all of them are bright orange with white bellies and black stripes or bands, or in the case of this one, both. And the reality is that they make very reasonable pets. But they are a bit different to keep than most snakes, so understanding how they are different is essential to determining if the bamboo rat snake is the best pet snake for you. And so to help you with this question, we're going to evaluate the bamboo rat snake based on our 5 categories, which are handleability, care, hardiness, availability, and upfront costs. When it comes to handleability, we give the bamboo rat snake a score of 3 out of 5. I was really tempted to go higher, as with work and patience, they can be fantastic. But they do have a few drawbacks when it comes to handling. First of all, they're not very big, especially males like this one. This just means that they can easily be injured or lost. That said, we gave hognose snakes a score of 5 out of 5, and males are about the same size as male bamboo rat snakes. So what's the difference? Well, for one thing, speed. Bamboo rat snakes have many common names, but one is Red Mountain Racer. And man, when these guys want to jet, they can fly. This increases the chances that they will actually succeed in launching from your hands and actually getting away. It also means that you might react by squeezing them, so the chances of an injury to the snake are higher. Also, they're Asian rat snakes. And Asian rat snakes are not notorious for their reluctance to bite. This guy was bitey when he first got here, and it won't blow my mind if he bites me today, but he's gotten much better. In fact, when he got here, he was just a blur of speed and tiny teeth. Those teeth won't do any damage, but all of this means that they're not the easiest snakes to handle, though it's really not that bad if you have some experience with fast snakes. And, those are the downsides. At the same time, there are some seriously wonderful things about handling these snakes, especially once you communicate to them that you mean them no harm. It is certainly true that they can't do you any real harm, and they are a very pleasant size to interact with in the hands. Not a good snake to hand to an inexperienced handler or to a child, but very rewarding to handle. When it comes to care, we give the bamboo rat snake a score of 4 out of 5. And before I go any further into the care of these snakes, I want to make it super clear that care for these snakes is very similar to that of Brazilian rainbow boas, just smaller. What I mean by that is that their care is not particularly difficult, but it is different from that of other outwardly similar snakes. And those differences are very important. You can't just treat these like other snakes in your collection. And care may vary a bit based on the exact subspecies that you have, so discuss that with your breeder. The important fact is that these guys hang out in moist forests and rainforests at some elevation. As a result, they like it humid and cool, at least cooler than most snakes. That actually makes these snakes a great candidate for being kept in planted bioactive enclosures like what you'd use for a New Caledonian gecko, just, that favor floor space over height. And because they are small, they will be much less likely to tear the enclosure apart and uproot all of your plants. Just make sure that you have a great lid. These are small and athletic. And make sure that they can't get behind that backdrop, unless you're cool with them being back there all of the time. They do well on a diet of appropriately sized rodents, mostly mice for these guys, and they tend to do well on frozen thawed, though it can be difficult to get hatchlings feeding at first. Water is very important for these guys. Like Brazilian rainbow boas, they need it cool and humid. This should be easy to accomplish if you mist regularly and make sure that the water bowl is always full. Temperature should be around room temperature, or in the lower 70s Fahrenheit, or about 22 degrees Celsius. Perhaps a bit warmer at the warm end, but not much. Just be careful. Excessive heat is more dangerous than being a bit too cool with these guys. If in doubt, stay cool. When it comes to hardiness, we give the bamboo rat snake a score of 4 out of 5. That is under a couple of assumptions. First, you got a captive bred baby that is already feeding well. Imports generally do not do well, but there are a lot of breeders working with them. My other assumption is that you don't overheat your snake. If you set up the enclosure appropriately, this shouldn't be a problem. After that, the biggest issue will just be proper hydration. These don't seem to be as sensitive to dehydration as Brazilian rainbow boas, but keeping humidity up and water available is very important. And speaking of Brazilian rainbow boas, you might have noticed that we just found them in the wild during our amazing trip to document the animals of the Peruvian Amazon. That trip was possible because of our patrons at Patreon, and I would love to go see these amazing animals in the wild as well, and share them and as many other species as possible with you. If you'd like to see that happen, or you'd just like to see the features that we have for our patrons at Patreon, please consider checking out our Patreon page. When it comes to availability, we give the bamboo rat snake a score of 3 out of 5. These guys are out there, but they're not common in pet shops or even expos. I have seen them at pet shops and expos, but don't be surprised if you can't find one. If you do find one, and it isn't a hatchling, be suspicious that it's an import. The best way is just to go straight to a breeder. They will sell you an excellent individual that is feeding, free of parasites, and low in stress. Plus, it will not put any stress on the wild populations. That's also super important. And of course, it will likely be alive in a couple of months, assuming of course that you did things right with regard to temperature and humidity. When it comes to upfront costs, we give the bamboo rat snake a score of 3 out of 5. The snake itself, for something this glorious, is not unreasonably expensive. But it's not cheap either. If it's super cheap, it probably is an import. The enclosure can be very inexpensive as they can be kept in a plastic bin, but what you really want is something that shows the snake off. Building a glorious enclosure for these guys is very doable, and it won't cost a fortune. We have videos on building bioactive enclosures, but these guys are a great candidate. What you will need is substrate that can be damp without molding. Make sure this is also true for all the tank features, including hides, a good water bowl, and maybe some plants. Lighting will be mostly for the plants, though low intensity UVB is never a bad idea. Just be sure that your lights don't put off too much heat for these guys. A heat pad on a thermostat can be used to elevate heat, but be careful if you go this route. And this is why overall, we give the bamboo rat snake a score of 3.4 out of 5. If what you want is a snake that has the temperature and humidity requirements of a crested gecko, and the colors of a tiger with the saturation boosted to the moon, then the bamboo rat snake might just be the perfect pet snake for you. As always, like and subscribe, and we hope to see you real soon.
That is a beautiful snake.
He's so cool.
Yeah.
Also, what should we name him?